Hi, my name is Bones Jones. So I do a lot of everything. I try to keep my hand in a lot of different styles of artistry. I try and I do my best to not be limited by what I think things are supposed to look like or feel like. At the main point of current time, I'm focusing a lot on fashion is the main medium, but I have a larger endeavor which is called the House of Bones, which is my lifestyle brand, which has a lot of different components to it. When you think of lifestyle, you think of home and interior, you think of how you exercise, you think of what you wear, what you eat. It's a lifestyle. But at the moment, the most tangible thing is fashion. So that's why fashion is what I'm working so hard on at the moment.
What would you say ignited your passion for fashion?
My passion for fashion. There was a lot of moments where my fashion inspiration was ignited. I would say the main source of that comes from, and the earliest source of that comes from my grandmother. My grandmother was a seamstress, and she made customs for people, myself included, all throughout my childhood, ever since I can remember. Some of the earliest pictures you see of me, I have on clothing from my grandmother. And so seeing her do that and then develop into having her own storefront in like the downtown area of our country town, that was my earliest starts of fashion.
Nice. And where are you from?
I'm from I was born in Surrey County, Virginia, but I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is like very much how it sounds.
And how did you end up at the Clemente Center in the Lower East Side from Virginia?
So that's a long...
If you could shorten it.
The way I ended up at the Clemente, the quickest version is I've been in New York. Well, I started out in New York for about 10 years. I left New York for about 2.5 and came back to New York in 2019, which was supposed to be just for a visit for my birthday. That visit turned from a week until a month. That month turned into me moving back to New York and deciding to start and really pursue this career in fashion. In 2020, I started the brand, and from there it was just like a slow rolling kind of thing because COVID happened. From there, this past summer, 2 years ago, I started a residency and a fellowship with Columbia University. They have a program called the Insight Program, which is an oral research and history program. We did a first issue of a magazine that went well, and they decided to give me a second year in my fellowship. In August, I believe, July or August, myself and one of the organizers from the Insight Program, we came to an event at the Clemente and the Flamboyant. And from that event, Michael and I were just like, what else is in this building? So Michael came back to another event that was held here, ended up meeting Natalia and Libertad. And from there, they were like, we have some space. And he was like, well, I know someone who needs some space. And so that is how I ended up at the Clemente.
That's so nice.
So from August to November, that relationship happened.
And how long have you been at the Clemente?
My tenancy started in November, but as you see, it was nothing like this in November. So from November to January, we spent renovating the room, covered in dust, and then started working out of the space at end of November, beginning of February. End of January, beginning of February.
Yeah. What would you say is somewhat of the purpose of what you create?
Oof. I would say the purpose of what I create, the basic version, the simplest version is to satisfy my childhood brain. That's why I create. There's so many things that I've seen and been inspired from since a kid and growing up in Virginia, different parts of Virginia, to then moving to New York and then living abroad. There's so many things that I feel inspired by and reasons why I want to create, but the simplest version is like it satisfies my childhood brain to do things that I dreamt of, or just even that moment of feeling like you dream in your adulthood. And then there's other parts and scenarios that what people want. You see a need for something in the world, and I try to fill it as best I can.
Is there any sort of purpose behind your work for the collective, for society? Because I've read a couple of things about you, and I know that you focus a lot on Black, African American, queer communities, and I just wanted to know how your work transmits a message, or what kind of message it transmits to these communities.
I think I'd like to know for myself, but I think what the perception ends up being is, I am a person that's not afraid to live how I want to live. And once I found that independence in myself, leaving, the country, Virginia, Southern upbringing that I came from, which I'm very thankful for because it shaped kind of like how I moved through the world. But there was a lot of portions of me that aren't accepted in a religious Southern background. And so a big purpose for me and a big drive for me is to show these different communities, and communities that I even don't exist in, or communities that I'm not a part of, is that anything is kind of possible. With not really having a capacity on your mind. I think a lot of times we use this word capacity a little bit incorrectly too, because capacity means there's a cap on it, there's a limitation. And I strive to show what the magnitude of it means to be a human first, like Hueman, like from the color of us to what we physically are. What is the magnitude of that, and what can you do, within your communities that reaches out. So I strive to just be as free and as me as I can as a queer Black person. Day to day, you could catch me presenting on a range of ways. I may have on a do-rag and some dunks and some basketball shorts, and you would never know I'm gay. You would never know I'm a part of the queer community. Some days I may have on a do-rag and some eye makeup, so you might be able to guess.
Right.
Some days I may look like a full woman, so I don't know. So that flexibility and just being who I am and wanting to present to the world however I want to present is what I would say these communities see from me.
Amazing. How do you believe, if at all, having access to a studio in a community-centered organization has allowed you to really interact with your communities, or with communities in general, like you said? I
will say the first thing that makes the Clemente an amazing space for me to be at this moment, and also being my first studio outside of my home, is the location is incredible. It's not Midtown. It's not, all the way up in Harlem. It's not deep in Brooklyn or Queens. It's literally at a central meeting point for all these things to come together. If you're coming from Jersey, it's very easy to get here. If you're coming from Harlem, easy to get here. Coming from Brooklyn, easy to get here. And so I really love the central location of the Clemente. And stepping on Suffolk Street, you can feel the history that's existed here, and the history of the street, however you want to take it, mixed with the magnitude of this building and the size of this building. It takes up an entire block, which is so special because you can feel that it was something else. You know that it was something else, but now you know that it's a hub for creatives, artists, different communities to come, different types of people to come and experience what this building has to offer. And I know that being here in this central location is like the first thing that my communities love. People love, you know, feeling fab and coming to this space, and then they come in the room and they're like, oh my God, I'm downtown in the atelier, like that feels great. You know, so to be able to serve that kind of energy and to be able to kind of stroke people's ego in that way is amazing, because a lot of people from our communities don't get to go to a designer's atelier and touch the fabrics and feel, you know, what something may feel like, you know, pick their own diamonds for the thing. Whatever it is that they are enjoying about the process of coming here is what I think is the best part, is that's just not accessible for many people. That they buy customs from, or that they got, you know, if someone buys a Speedo from me, or someone buys a gown from me, they can still say that they came to this location to purchase it. And that is nice. What I think is the best part.
Great, yeah. And then as a designer, or yourself, I look a lot into textile sustainability and really the issue of like unjust or unfair labor. So this plays a big role in the fashion industry and the fast fashion industry specifically. So again, as a designer and as a person who I'm sure does most of their work themselves, what would you say, or what do you think is the most important value in like artisanal and handmade work, rather than, you know, sourcing from industries that provide and support unfair labor?
I would say, you know, I've tried a lot of ways. I've tried a lot of things to be sustainable. I've tried a lot of, you know, and I thought sustainable meant like I really literally had to get like the husk from the from the pineapple and make leather from pineapple leaves, and you know, like I thought that was the only way to be sustainable. But to be sustainable really means that you're sustaining, and whatever capacity that means for you, that's what sustainable is. And so for me, there were moments that I tried to make a full collection, and I did make a full collection on my own, and you know, I had a 20 look collection, but I was burnt out. It was not sustainable for me. It wouldn't be sustainable if someone was like, okay, I want 20 of this dress and then 100 of these shorts and then 20 of this shirt. I can't do it all by myself, so it's not sustainable. So I kind of shied away from doing a collections for this amount of time, because that wasn't feeding my pockets, nor was it feeding my soul. So that's when I started getting into doing more customs, and I was like, now this is sustainable, because I can make one or two of these custom pieces and sell them for a price that works for my pocket, but also it feels inclusive enough for the person to understand like how much they're paying for, what they're getting out of it, and it is a one-off, you know. So doing customs has been a very large part of my sustainability as a person and as a brand. I'm just getting into, I'm making my first collection, actually. It's in production now, that I've done in like the past like 4 or 5 years, because now it feels like the proper time to where people will buy, you know, 20 of this and 20 of that, and I'll have it. And it's, again, sustainable for the brand's pocket as well as like my mental sanity.
Inclusive of this new collection, is there anything else we can expect from House of Bones? Any upcoming projects or collaborations or events that you would like to inform us about?
The collection is the biggest thing. And I am working on a project that, I can't speak on that yet.
Okay.
I can't speak on that yet, but maybe in like July.
Okay.
I will say, tentatively, we are talking about throwing a ball, but that ball and party that would possibly happen at the Clemente would be in June.
Yeah.
So we are planning on throwing a ball for Pride.
Okay.
This would be my first time throwing a ball. If you've ever been to a ball before, you know what the underground culture of the ballroom scene is like. And when I came to New York, I knew that these things existed, but I was very adamant on figuring out where they were. And it was so underground that it took me a second. But once I found it, I was just like a spectator. And I wouldn't say that I'm heavily into ballroom now, but I do build a lot of customs for ballroom people. A lot of my clients are from ballroom. And so I want to be able to bring a bit of a different perspective to the community of ballroom as someone who is more of a sideline participant, and also give some space to people who may not know how to engage with the ballroom community, a space to see what a ball is like and not be in the pressures of a real ball.
Yeah.
So that's one of my biggest things that I'm focusing on now, and then come back in July.